Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Modern Lawyers Podcast. I'll be your host, your lawyer, Ali, and we have a very special guest today, attorney Tim Hunt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great after that intro. I feel very esteemed to be here.
So, Tim, you have not taken any breaks. I mean, you've been going to school nonstop, went to law school, bar exam. I mean, it's been nonstop for you, and I've had the privilege of getting to know you a lot this past year, and you're a very competitive person. You're a very hard worker. You're very smart. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your upbringing and how you got to where you're at in life and how we can actually help others get to the situation that you're in now. So my understanding, you started in Orange County, went to high school in Orange County playing sports.
I actually was the fat, chubby kid in 8th grade, and I went into high school going, you know what, let's change this. I can't do anything with a ball, so I said, okay, football, I could be a lineman. I don't have to interact at all with the ball. I don't need to be coordinated. I just need to push people around. So I did that for 4 years. It was quite an awakening going from a sedentary kid to playing football for 4 years.
So you didn't like to play sports, for example, or play sports with a ball, and you kind of wanted to get out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just, even at that age, I was looking at myself and going, hey, I want to be more active. I want to, start, because everyone has that image of themselves in their head. And I was like, I wanted to actually start walking towards that image, getting closer to what I want to be.
Sure. How old were you when you decided this isn't the direction I want to be going? I don't want to be overweight and on the sideline. I want to be in the game. I want to be in shape.
I think my family really helped. I have two brothers, one older and a younger, and at that same time too, my older one was really getting into fitness, going to the gym a lot. I was kind of seeing the change she had, and he was 2 years ahead of me, so I was like, all right, in 2 years I can, get to where he is.
And so you did 4 years of football?
All 4 years, yep.
Any major injuries?
Thankfully, not too many. I was the guy who was running to the sideline a lot, though. I was getting these things called stingers, which is nerve impingements, and nothing serious, but you still get freaked out because a wave of warmth travels down to your fingertip, then back up. You're like, I don't know if that's a good thing to be receiving 8 times in one game.
Sure, and then we'll talk about that in a moment, how that relates to your knowledge of medicine and personal injury cases. So you went from there and then ended up going to college. My understanding, you did something called Model United Nations. What is that?
So MUN, it's a sort of a club, but every year, at least the school I went to, we would travel to both Washington, D.C. and New York for the national conferences. And it's people from all across the world, France, Germany, Japan, coming to New York to do basically it's make-believe United Nations. And, you're standing up in front of people from every country in the world, and you're trying to give a speech for 2 minutes, and then you'll go to a thing called informal caucus, and that is arguing your points you've made during your speech. So it was adversarial, but also collaborative because you were trying to win people over, but also showing them that their ideas were flawed and they could use the things you were trying to bring forward and trying to present to the body of the whatever committee you were on.
I see. And that probably helped your public speaking a lot, right?
Yeah, I was terrible before it. I was, the guy, I never thought I'd be, giving a speech and I couldn't control my knees. And the first time I gave a speech, I remember it was nerve-wracking. I tried to point, and I remember, going what's happening to me? I normally don't have this reaction to just speaking, and I remember my knees too just shaking uncontrollably. And I'm the type of person where when I'm faced with something like that makes me that uncomfortable, especially something that I didn't originally think would kind of rock my ship that much. I want to get better at it just in case I ever have to do it again. It's no longer, this giant ordeal. When I sit down, I feel like I just, exhausted, tired, want to go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to be facing the same issue twice without trying your best the first time, right? I think that's like a cardinal sin to make the same. It's okay to make the same mistake twice, but not proactively doing your best to prevent yourself from making the same mistakes, I guess.
At least looking at what that mistake is, if you think it is, and trying to approach it a different way, or look at it, take a step back, be like, why do I feel like this is a mistake? What can I do to, either get rid of the mistake or alleviate why I feel this way? For me, it was, anyone who's done a lot of public speaking, you yourself would say, you just have to do it a lot. The nerves go away. You just have to stand up there. It's awkward the first 20 times you do it, but you do it enough, you'll go, oh, these people, half of them are on the phone. The other half are sort of paying attention. Sure. Maybe there's 10% that are listening to every word. Those are the people you just have to win them over, but they're already listening.
Absolutely. And about how many people were you speaking in front of?
The largest committee I was on was, I want to say it was 384 people.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a full room.
Yeah. And it's 2 minutes. You walk up with your script, but then you realize some things have come up in committee that I should address. So you're doing your script and you're like, I should really talk about the nuclear energy topic that's floating around right now. So you're like, well, and then you try to divert into that, but then you're going off script, and anyone who goes off script can tell you're like, I don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm just saying buzzword, and I'm hoping it clicks.
Yeah.
But you do it enough, and then you realize okay, it's imagine you're having a conversation, and it's something I'm super glad I forced myself to do MUN, because over the 3 or 2 years I did it, day one, I was, this 18-year-old kid who would have a problem giving a public speech in a classroom of, classmates, 10, 20 people, to going from, the 384, 382 people doing it and going back down and just, I could go up and do it again. There's no problem there.
That's amazing. So that's, probably many times in your life, but that sounds like the second time you did something that was very uncomfortable for you, right? Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I like to say that a lot.
I completely agree. I think if you ever feel like you're kind of stagnating or kind of feel like you're in a rut, I think going out there, everyone knows what they hate. Everyone knows what they like, but you especially know what you dislike.
Yeah.
I think people tend to do that. And for me, it was public speaking. I knew that from day one. It was, working out, having a regime, making it a habit. All those things I could tell, it would be hard for me to follow, and that's why I forced myself to do it. And I think I really have grown because just having that naysayer in the back of your head say, just do it, just keep doing it.
Absolutely. And this is, somewhat in college. You ended up going to UCSD, go Tritons?
Mm-hmm. San Diego, yep.
Okay, right on. So what did you study there?
I studied political science with an emphasis in public law. I originally went to college thinking I'd be a doctor like my dad, but then I realized I was not good at the more rigorous physics, chemistry, the classes that hard sciences. I found myself naturally drawn to more speeches, arguments, English, writing, those kinds of things. I kind of discovered that about myself, and what drew me to kind of following political science.
Right on. So it sounds like you had this affinity towards law. Your dad was a doctor. What kind of doctor is your dad?
Radiologist. So if you break a bone, he's the one taking an x-ray, figuring out, what happened.
All right. And that goes hand in hand with personal injury. Obviously, it sounds like you were born to do this, and we'll get into that as well. So you did poli-sci. You did an emphasis in law, and then you said, you know what, that's not enough education. I like the punishment. I want to go to law school.
Yeah, took the LSAT, signed my life away for 3 years, and then went to law school.
Okay, and you didn't have the typical law school experience. You did really well in law school.
Yeah, I guess you could put it like that. I was always just kind of the guy with my head down, just trying to get through it. I never really was standing up and looking around, seeing how everyone else was.
Because you're always just competing against yourself.
Mm-hmm. Competing against, the person I was the day before.
Exactly. And I think that's just something that we strive for at this law firm, right? It's like we're all here, we're all teammates, but we're competing against ourselves. We want to be better than we were yesterday.
100%.
And so in law school, not only did you do well, you're a part of something called Law Review.
Yes.
What is that?
So Law Review, it is, if you've ever seen Legally Blonde or any other law school-esque show or movie, it is like the prestigious, nosy club organization where most schools you have to be invited on. You have to reach a certain grade to get invited on. Some let you write on. I was personally invited on because of my grades, and you basically have to, as a project, write a 40 to 60 page legal argument, legal brief, just something. It's like a newspaper for lawyers, basically. So it's very dry, niche law you write about, and you try to write 40 to 60 pages on it.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed the tools it gave me. I think I would be crazy to say it's an enjoyable experience, but I think it's a rewarding one because the topic I wrote about was on video games, and it's a passion of mine, and I did it for 44 to 50. I think my total was 52 pages, and it taught me very well how to present an argument because I was presenting something that people aren't really talking about right now. And I was not only doing that, I was doing it to a bunch of 60-year-old to 65-year-old attorneys who have been in the business. They kind of know what you can and can't sue over. And I had to make a case why I think, video game law is going to boom in the next 20 years. So it was a very weird thing to think, oh, okay, people who are more knowledgeable than me are going to look at this and say, is this kid onto something or not? And so it was a lot of legal research. I had to consult a lot of different journals out there to see kind of the precedent for law. Overall, it was very intense, but it really taught me how to present arguments in a way that I think the layperson could understand, but also someone who is highly educated could as well.
Absolutely. Presenting arguments are difficult, but presenting arguments on a novel issue, you're going to be a pioneer in that. That's difficult. There's no template. You're starting that from scratch. So it took a lot of research and structuring your arguments and able to present that in front of people. So I can appreciate that. And before I get into, how many people are a part of Law Review and all that, gaming's your passion. It's my understanding that recently you're a finalist in some type of game.
Yeah, I'm someone where I need an outlet for my competitiveness, and being a lawyer is great for that.
Sure.
Because it's day in and day out of trying to do the best for the client. But I think it's important to have that work-life balance to go home and go, hey, I'm still hungry. I still want to improve, and gaming is a great outlet for that. I competed in competitive events over the weekend. This last weekend, I scored high enough, and I was able to get some prize money from it. But nothing too crazy. Of course, this is video games here we're talking. I'm not retiring off it or anything like that.
Good for you. And how many people are a part of Law Review? How many people apply? How does that work? Because not everybody can be a part of Law Review. You're writing scholarly articles that people look into and use that as a secondary source.
I would say there was my class was 156, I want to say, and there were 12 of us on Law Review.
Wow.
So, it's a very small group, and it like I said, I was personally invited on. I think you can write on as well, but then that goes through, I think, 3 separate professors review your write on to see, if you write well enough to present novel arguments.
So, law school is pretty competitive, and for only less than 10% gets asked or joins Law Review. What did you do that was so great that they asked you, like, Tim, we need to have you?
My first year's grades were high enough. You have to be at the top 10% of your class to get invited on. I made that cut. I was invited on. I was like, I understand how prestigious it is to be on Law Review, so I was like, I need to do this, And I wanted to improve my writing as well. I'm someone who I have written a lot throughout my years of school, but I've never did it at such a level where I know for a fact that, like I said, people way more intelligent than me will be reviewing my arguments picking it apart and seeing if I'm presenting it in the strongest way.
Absolutely. And for anybody that's listening to this, going to law school, difficult. Being asked to be a part of law review and finishing the top 10% or close up there, very difficult. So, I mean, it's an honor to be talking to you. Truly, it's not easy. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to finish at the top of your class amongst really bright individuals. I mean, that's not easy. So I do want to emphasize that. And so, when I say you don't stop, immediately after graduating, top of your class, you're like, I'm going to take the hardest exam in America. I'm going to take the California State Bar.
Yeah, couldn't wait.
Still recovering?
Still recovering.
How was that for you? I know it used to be a 3-day exam. Now it's a 2-day exam.
Yeah, so it is 6 essays the first day, 200 multiple choice questions the next day. And it is, I'd say, of course, the most rigorous test I've taken in my entire life. And I think, it's up there. If you could make an argument, doctor's MCAT, it's one of the more rigorous tests. And then California on top of that is one of the ones where it's the hardest. It has the lowest passing rate.
And did you pass?
I passed.
Okay, but it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. You decided to take another bar exam immediately after. What was that?
Yeah, so I found out I passed. I believe it was November 11th. And then November 12th, I was signing up for the Nevada State Bar. The argument being, hey, it's all fresh. The federal law stays the same. So let's, while it's in there, just try to, diversify, branch out there,
I mean, truly, you're a machine. I mean, you've been going nonstop this entire time, took 2 bar exams, and here we are. I coined this, self-proclaimed, I used to be the youngest Billboard attorney, early 30s. But now, Tim, I think you're the youngest Billboard attorney.
I would be surprised. Yeah, but it is crazy to think, that keeping your head down, it does work. It might take a while. You might think, man, all I'm doing is reading a book, going to the gym every day, or whatever it may be. But you do see those results, and especially when you hit those milestones, it's something else.
Absolutely. I mean, just early on in your career, I know you took trial advocacy courses in law school. How did that help translate for our trial this year?
Well, my teacher was actually a judge, currently practicing judge. So the insight he gave, he could straight up tell you, no, that's wrong. If you were in my court, I would throw you out. You don't get much better advice than that, especially for someone who is going to trial and is in trial. So if the judges judges aren't supposed to be candid like that in trial.
Sure.
They're supposed to seem removed from the process. But hearing a judge picking his brain apart was really enlightening for me.
Absolutely. And I feel like that helped with the line of questioning how to get evidence in a trial, right?
It really did, because, a big thing at trial is, I think every attorney would say this, it's how you ask your question can be the difference. It's if you include one more how or why, it could potentially not come in. It comes down to that. Of course, you can always rephrase it, but you don't have that punch that you do the first time you ask that question.
I completely agree with that. And so, what's some advice you can give to, anyone that's going to law school, wants to apply to law school? Not everybody has the success that you did early on. And I know that's your competitive nature. It's you pushing yourself, wanting to be uncomfortable. These are all not easy feats to conquer. So, what's some advice you can give to the younger generation to how you got to where you're at?
I honestly think it's not being the most gifted person in the room, but I think it's being the person who looks at themselves the most. And every day you need to see, what could I do better? What can I improve on? And yeah, you're not going to always succeed at improving. I'm not saying every day I'm slowly becoming more superhuman, but I think people who every day look at themselves and say, hey, this is my goal for today. This is what I want to improve. You might not reach that goal, but having that out there, materializing that, it's more important, I think, than just being naturally gifted.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I'm going to put you on the spot right now. A candidate like you, leaving the top of their class in law school, you actually have options. You can work at probably 99% of any firm. Why did you choose Razavi Law Group?
I chose Razavi. Do we have 30 minutes? But the big thing for me is I think, lawyers, all attorneys kind of have a impression that they're in it for the money. At the end of the day, this is a job for them. They're just trying to get paid. But here, it truly feels unique because we care about the client's well-being at the end of the day. I don't think at any other law firm I've heard an attorney go, you doing this choice actively hurts this firm, but actively benefits you, and I want you to do that. Mm-hmm. But here, that is something we will do. We won't always tell client that. We don't need to tell client that, but just having that thought process is huge for me.
I really appreciate you saying that. We always try and we strive to put the client first. I mean, granted, we have an ethical obligation to doing that, but we will go the extra mile. Even if we're not complaining to the client about it, we will do what we need to do to get full compensation for the client. So I really do appreciate you noticing that here. And we're so happy to have you. So thank you for joining us today. And everybody, thank you for following and watching the Modern Lawyers Podcast. Click the follow button, subscribe, and watch out for the next episode. Cheers.